morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday, July 12th edition of Jeff and Paper Gary. Hanging out in the garage today to work on the left elevator still. I've got the right elevator closed up, those rolled edges that you have seen in the last video. I got those buttoned up during the week. Started working on the left one and need to finish on those. So there'll be a little bit of massaging of metal to get those into place so that they sit nice and I'm not having to force them in and we don't get a bunch of ripples in there. That takes quite a bit of massaging and work, but we'll get there. Other things, I know it's been a while since I've posted a video, so we had a holiday, and of course holidays we go and travel and do things. This last 4th of July holiday was spent in West Lafayette, Indiana, home to Purdue University, and where we dropped our daughter off for 2 weeks of college courses. So college courses for high school students. So she's having a blast down there in Lafayette, hanging out at Purdue, and we're really proud of her and really excited that she had the opportunity. So other things, shocking revelations and news here. So you guys may not have caught, I think I might have mentioned it before, you know, we're obviously building a Vans Rv-8 here in the garage. I've never actually flown in a Vans aircraft. So it's kind of strange, right? Like, why would you be building an aircraft that you've never flown in? Okay, all kinds of reasons. Saw one long time ago. Actually, I saw a Harmon rocket a long time ago and thought it was the coolest thing ever. And I thought, if I ever build an airplane, it's going to be a Harmon rocket. Turns out I really didn't want to go the Harmon rocket route when it came time to build an airplane, so the Vans Rv-8 was kind of the closest thing to it. And they've got a great reputation, and I knew what I wanted. I wanted a tandem two-seat aircraft. And I wanted some pretty good performance, so I went with a Vans Rv-8. But yesterday, my technical advisor took me for a flight. So I showed up at our monthly EAA meeting, expecting to go attend one of the meetings, because I haven't been in a long time, because it seems like every second weekend of the month I'm traveling somewhere. But he was there, and I told him the last time, which was many months ago, when he invited me to go fly, that I would not say no. So he got me yesterday, and we went for a flight in his RV-7. Now, this RV-7 of his is like one of 8 Vans aircraft that he has built, and he's currently working on a Vans RV-15. And I got to tell you, I was completely blown away. I did all of my training, most of my training in an old Cherokee, and boy, the difference is pretty significant, to say the least. Did, like I said, training in Cherokee, a little bit of 150, 172. But man, this was an incredibly responsive and incredibly fast airplane, and he's a great builder, so it flew so smooth and tracked so nicely. So had a lot of fun. Really appreciate that opportunity to go fly with him and get that Vans RV grin, because it does happen. It is a thing. So really enjoyed that. Great time, and man, not that I needed the renewed energy, but it certainly did give me a boost of energy to keep pushing on this plane. So really looking forward to the day when I get to fly my own, and also looking forward to the day when I hop on a commercial jet and fly out to Oshkosh, which is happening about a week from today. So all that out of the way, let's go dig in and see what we learned today.
Okay, so there were a lot of lessons learned here in this one. The forming of this metal and the rolling. Now, we've talked about this in the past, and I know there's a bunch of videos and a bunch of posting on all kinds of group of how to roll this. You have heard me say in the past, I think the best way to do this is exactly what the instructions tell you, and that's tape a pipe, bar, broomstick, whatever in there, and roll this thing down. It does take a lot of work. It is probably a 2-person job, in my opinion, at least to get your initial roll in there. And what happened here is we rolled them, and when you roll metal, it's got a little bit of a memory, so there's some spring back that's associated with there. So if you roll it to a certain degree, right, it's not going to stay in that one position. It's going to spring back just a little bit. And this one sprung back a little bit too far from what we rolled it. And some of that has to do with where you tape your pipe or your bar. And I mentioned that before. When I first did the very early pieces of the rudder skin, I taped it right kind of high, I'll call it high on the edge. And I got too much curl or bend in the area where the rivets are. So this time I taped it a little further down. And that worked better, but there was still some forming. And, you know, metal is not unlike other materials like plastic. It will work harden as you bend it. So the more you bend it, the more it work hardens. And that can lead to cracks. So you don't want to have to massage this and bend it back and forth too awfully much. But This one did have to get a little bit more roll. So you'll see I taped the pipe in there again and cranked down on it and gave it a lot more roll, and that was really what was necessary to get those two pieces to line up. So the other thing that you can do on here, and I didn't really get this advice until it was too late for me, and I didn't really think about it. So you may have seen me there with the seaming pliers, trying to put just a little bit of bend in the edge of that skin where the rivet row is, so that it lays flat against the other piece or the other side of the metal. If you have the break edge tool, right, looks like a pair of vice grips with some ball bearing roller wheels on there. I have heard that would be a good thing. I didn't learn that trick until after I riveted, but that would have been a good tool to go take across there and put just a little bit of bend so that it sits nice and flat. What is really important here, and I may have mentioned it in the last video, but it's worth mentioning again, make sure that your upper skin is overlapping your lower skin. These are not sealed up with Pro Seal or anything of that nature, and so if you have the wrong orientation of the skin, that is the lower skin overlapping the upper skin, that will leave chance for water intrusion when you're washing the airplane or when it rains on it or if there's dew or whatever. So make sure that you have that upper skin overlapping the lower skin. I'll also point out, and I read 3, 4, 5 times, I didn't see anywhere in the instructions where they tell you to drill out these holes to accompany the associated rivet in there. And I forget the name, I forget the part number of the rivet, but the rivet that goes in there is not does not fit the pre-punched number 40 hole that's in there. You have to drill that out to like an 1/8 inch, or I think it's like a number 30 drill. So just a heads up on that one. This portion, as we're going forward, working on the trim tab some more. And I don't know if there's anything too shocking to address here. It's pretty straightforward, but it is very sensitive, I think, to twisting, warping, and making sure that you get those bends just right. Mainly the trailing edge of that, and then you just kind of walk through the steps here. Now, what I'm trimming here on that Beverly shear, and this is kind of neat. These are the pieces that will attach to the bottom of the trim tab that the actuator for the electric trim tab attaches to. That Beverly shear was lent to me by a friend of mine, and it works really great. And these things are fairly cheap to grab from like Harbor Freight or somewhere, and they're really, really nice for cutting aluminum. They're far easier to use than some tin snips, and it's far safer and better to use than the bandsaw. You guys have heard me mention in the past how much the bandsaw kind of scares me. It's pretty violent. I don't like it, and I'm certain that one of these days that I'm using it, it's going to hurt me. But I did read, I don't know if anybody else caught it either, I did read in last month's, maybe the month before, issue of EAA Sport Magazine, they had a whole article on bandsaw and using the bandsaw. And one of the things that I read in there was that you should have a blade that has about 3 teeth in contact with the metal that you're cutting. So when you think of, O25 aluminum or O30 aluminum, that stuff's far too thin. You're never going to get a blade that has 3 teeth in contact with that metal at any given time. And so it really has the ability to get the metal stuck between the teeth, if you will. And that's what leads to kind of that violent operation of chomping or chiseling away metal while you're cutting. Thicker pieces of metal like we did early on in the horizontal stab, where we cut those angle brackets, great use for the bandsaw. But for this thin stuff, it really doesn't work. And so that Beverly shear is really kind of the way to go. And I wish I had it earlier. But it's mine now until my friend comes and takes it back, and then I'll have to go buy my own. The rest of this here is forming some ribs that go in the end here. So as we mentioned before, I'm going to cap off all these exposed ends of the flight control surfaces and fill them in with composite material, because that is a nice clean look and better than the folded over aluminum tabs. And so I just took some scrap metal, pieces of wood, made some forms, and then took my raw hide hammer and pounded out a couple of ribs to fit in here, and rivet those things in place, just so I can have that as a stop for the composite material to go in there. So that's about all with this. I'll go through the dimpling, and I did have to take a break throughout here to get my paint booth back in order so I can prime parts, but everything is ready to go and should be back for riveting here in the next episode. As you know, Oshkosh is coming up, so it might be a while till we get to that, but we'll see you next time and we'll see where we get. Thanks everyone for watching.
All right, everyone, we don't have much more to do on the trim tab. Trying to think, did we do anything on the elevator today? Elevator got riveted, we closed that up, so that's good. Had to make a quick run to Lowe's to get some filter material for the paint booth so that I can prime the parts on the elevator trim tab, and then it'll be button that thing up and be done. This may be the last video I post before Oshkosh, because that's coming up soon, so hope to see anybody and all of you there. If you see me, say hi, and until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. This is Jeff and Paper Gary out.